Hey everyone, loads of stuff to look at regarding Las Vegas, and I haven't done one of these common theme videos for a little while, which really just reminded me as to why I did this channel to start with. It was all about trying to strip back any event and look at it in its almost its basic elements so that you could look at it and go, is this similar to last time? Is there something new that makes this more credible? That kind of thing. Now, at the moment, Las Vegas has a lot of people divided, but this is a different subject. The reason why I'm doing a common theme video is mainly because I've come across this particular article. Now, of course, what I'm most interested in is the idea that this particular woman is involved in two what can be described as terrorist shootings, whether domestic or foreign. And really, regardless of the nature of the event, the question is what are the odds? So here are some odds that have been gathered up over a period of before 9/11 and after 9/11. Now, of course, these odds have been based on the presumption that the attacks that they are documenting have actually happened. So they've obviously included the statistics of the people killed within the events that fell within those years. Now, of course, these stats are based on somebody dying in a terror attack, so the examples that we're going to give aren't necessarily people dying, but certainly being involved in them. So is it fair to assume that the figures for dying and being involved are going to be similar? Well, I'd say so, because you effectively concentrated when it comes to these attacks. So you were in a nightclub or you were in and around the area at the time, so the odds have got to be similar at the very least. But this, of course, is where we have the problem. When we're talking about people being at multiple events, I mean, if these are the odds of just dying in an event, or if we're assuming that they're similar for being in and around at the time, then the odds, we're just never going to get the figures, but it's going to be way off the charts. It could be in the billions for all we know. So this is the point I want to make. If you came across this article and you saw that this girl Melissa had managed to survive 2 terror attacks, would you think anything of it? Well, if it was the only time that you'd ever seen something like this, probably not. I mean, it's a bit like everybody knows the story about the fella who survived the 2 nuclear bombs, one in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But then, what if you saw the same thing again and again and again? You'd have to question its authenticity. So we've got our first example here. This is a couple from the UK who were at 9/11, who were at the 7/7 London bombings, and then they were also at a terror attack in Mumbai. Now, one thing I've got to say when I was looking for the content for this video, this story doesn't seem to have much behind it. It seems to be almost like put together as one of those urban myths, because there's no pictures of this couple. So whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I'll come back to this when we're discussing the conclusion of this video. So next up we've got this guy called Matthew, an American who was both at 9/11 and the Bataclan massacre in Paris. So again, going back to the odds, if you're from France, the odds are 1 in 4 million in dying in a terror attack. So not only has he got those odds to contend with, he's also got the fact that the capacity at the Bataclan was only 1,500. So you've got to factor that in as well. What are the odds that he'd be at that small venue and it would be happening at the same time? Again, the odds would be just out there. So next up we've got another guy who was also at the Paris attacks, and he's the more famous Mason Wells, who was also at the Boston Marathon and the Brussels attacks. He was at the airport. So unlike our first example where the English couple who were at 3 events, Mason Wells is documented properly as being at this Brussels event, and they did label him as being at these different events. This isn't just hearsay, this is him saying it on TV, in newspapers and so on. The next person we're going to look at is a woman called Sarah. She defied the 1 in 8.7 million odds and was unfortunately killed in the London Bridge attack. Now, what's more strange about this story is that she narrowly avoided the Westminster attack, and she also had tickets to see Ariana Grande for the Manchester bombing, but just decided not to go. Now, to me, that sounds like something from the film Final Destination. So on the subject of Manchester, of course, we've got Chris Pauli, who I've done videos about previously. He was at the Manchester Arena bombing and left early, but he was also at the Barcelona terror attack as well. And then we've got this woman here who was at 3 different terror attacks. She was there for London Bridge, she was at Notre Dame in France, and she was also at the Barcelona terror attack. So the point I want to make with this video is that when it comes to these events, you've effectively got a checklist, a bit of a blueprint, the same things that happen again and again, and this is one of them. And the thing is, in this example that I gave, I mentioned that I think it's a bit of an urban myth, but the point I'm trying to make is that just because they put a photograph of a person next to the story, does that make it any more real? Or in the case of Mason Wells, where he's actually saying, I was at 3 different terror attacks, does that make it any more real? And you've got to bear in mind that if this person is in fact lying, because the odds of him being at 3 different attacks are not possible, then he's lying, his injuries are not real, and the media are allowing him to push that story, so they're complicit in this lie. One thing to mention, by the way, is that these articles, when they do come out, they're not there for the sake of just writing an article. It's also to remind you of previous events, just in case you forget them, because they are happening so quickly that you are going to forget the inner details of them, and it's just a little reminder that it did in fact happen. So, for example, at the minute, the Vegas attack has effectively overshadowed anything that happened previously. So, for example, the terror attack which happened in Canada, nobody is covering that because everybody is looking at Vegas. Whereas if they release a story like, oh, there was somebody at Canada and Vegas and somewhere else, oh yeah, there was a terror attack in Canada, and it gets your mind going again, and that's the other purpose of them too. So thanks very much for watching, and if you've got any other examples of people being at multiple events, please let me know.